Good day, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to our Global Chamber Author Series. And this is actually the final one of the year. We conduct our author series once a month, the third Thursday, and generally it's at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And then we have opportunities where it's actually 8 p.m. Eastern Time, whereby we can also have people on live from across the globe. And since we are global, we want to give that opportunity for speakers as well as other guests to be on live in their region and have that live reach. And this is the fourth year that Global Chamber Author Series is in operation. We're going into our fourth year. It was started by none other than Gloria Peterson, if you know her, a phenomenal woman and in her own rights, and just really able to galvanize more than 100 authors in the Global Chamber. And since that time, we have galvanized more and had speakers from the United States, from Spain, from China last week, just all over. And we're planning to continue in this span of engaging and growing our author component. So I'm going to go ahead and just share our slides. And then if you have comments or questions, feel free to utilize the chat section. And in the meantime, also share your contact information where we can find you on LinkedIn. That seems to be the space in which we are able to connect relatively easily. So the Global Chamber Author Series, this is where we're going to share stories, tips, and techniques. But if you had to walk away with one word, just one word for what we do, we engage, which means participation is essential so that you can get something out of it as well. So our Global Chamber family here, we're very diverse in terms of our experiences, books, workshops, and collaborations. And in this past year, we have seen many of our Global Chamber members or our tribes collaborate and write books. That was one of the goals. And then we've had increased attendance, people wanting to engage and learn more about the process of writing, and some of the traps even. My name is Dr. Dana Austin. I'm the Executive Director for Global Chamber Atlanta. I am a healthcare professional and a researcher. And those of you who know me, I'm not just a lover of tea, but I love the whole ceremony of it, so much so that I became a tea consultant. And my award-winning best-selling book is about tea with string vignettes. And I started a foundation 4 years ago, Transformational Writers Academy, to support writers. And I came on board with Gloria when she was starting the author series as an author, as a speaker, and that has evolved in the last 2 years, this month actually, as the leader for the Global Chamber Author Series. Okay, so we're going to continue in that spirit of excellence. And this is the latest release here that I have, which I coach writers to become authors in 90 days. And I thought, let me write something that's going to support them tangible. And we at Global Chamber, so some of you are maybe new to this space for the first time. So I want to let you know how Global Chamber can and has impacted many lives, business owners, leaders, dignitaries. What we do as a mission is that we accelerate cross-border trade and investment in every region of the world. We do that by engaging people like you, top executives and leaders, with warm connections, meetups, and collaborations. And our vision continues to be to have a world where it's easy as growing across region as it is doing business across the street. 525 metros and growing, 5 continents, 195 countries. We are Global Chamber. We are housed in Phoenix, Arizona. At the Global Chamber, we are at the Thunderbird School of Global Management. So we're housed there. And because of our affiliation with the Thunderbird School of Global Management, we also have access to their 30 locations. So we're pretty extensive just in that space alone. Now, so this year, one of my favorite quotes is start with the end in mind. And I don't just apply it to dessert at dinner. I apply it to business. Think about where you want to be. And so when we started at the beginning of 2025, we said, what did we want to accomplish on our Global Chamber Author Series? We wanted to offer and alternating months, actually featuring 2 authors instead of 3, more time for dialogue and engagement, and then add workshops. So we would have speakers and then we'd have workshops. So today we're closing off with a workshop. And it's nice again to start with the end in mind, and then we can review the progress. And so we look at the metrics. Our numbers have increased from attendees and replay. There have been more books and collaborations this year birthed out of the Global Chamber Author Series. And we want to continue in that vein well on to 2026. So just by a show of hands, or even if you want to type in the chat, the number 1, if you have written a book, raise your hand or put number 1 in the chat. This is part of our engagement. If you have written a book, put number 1 in the chat, if you would. If you want to write a book, put number 2 in the chat. Let's use the chat for our communication at this moment. So number 1, if you've written a book, number 2, if you want to write a book. And number 3 is that you're not sure where you fall. You're somewhere in between. Thank you for indulging me and utilizing this chat. All right. I see a few responses. Thank you so much. So I see your comment too, Mohammed. All right, Brandon, I know you and I will connect soon in the new year to move that needle forward. So today we're going to talk about 3 steps in protecting your intellectual property. How many steps? Yes, 3. I had the incredible pleasure this year to go to the Library of Congress, which is the largest library in the world. And it serves as the research arm of the United States Congress. So all of the data, any communications and so forth is housed there. But when you think about the Library of Congress, you might not necessarily think about it as serving you outside of you wanting to go there to review materials. And I should have pulled out my Library of Congress card. I have one of those now too. I think that's like my Black card. That's equivalent to that for me. I'm not saying that I have a Black card, but that's an aspiration too. But in other words, it means a lot to be able to access all that they house. And when you think about the Library of Congress, you may not think about yourself, but I want you to think differently today by the time that we're done as we go through the slides. So the Library of Congress houses over 170 million items total in all formats, 170 millions, whether it's newspapers, periodicals from around the world, manuscripts, including original works by U.S. presidents, authors, and historical figures, map, sheet music, sound recordings, films, television broadcasts, and videos, photographs, and even prints, performing arts archives, digital collection, and website, United States copyright records. Now, any of you in this space have contributed in the form of these aspects, books, newspapers, manuscript. Have you written those? Have you produced art? And if you have, chances are you have the opportunity, if you haven't already done so, to get your book or your sheet music or your business plan or whatever those materials you've produced into the Library of Congress. And you can only know, I wish I could have shown some more pictures. I was like a child in a candy store there. I got a chance to see artwork, books, albums, Muppets. The Muppets actually there. They're in the protected in the copyright as well. So when you think about intellectual property, what comes to mind for you? We hear it, we speak of it even. What comes to mind when you think of intellectual property? Because what should come to mind is anything that you create, creations of your mind, your original works, and ideas that are legally protected so that the creator or owner has exclusive right to use, share, and benefit from them. So I do want us to unmute, if you can, just so that we can have some dialogue around this. What are some things that you think of when we talk about intellectual property?
Well, the most obvious is, of course, copyright.
Absolutely. And who was that said that? Okay. Christopher, I'm expecting you to chime in a little bit more. I read your profile.
Okay.
And okay, go ahead. Expound a little bit.
Well, copyright means that whatever you write belongs to you, and that you need not only to register it, but you also need to renew it. This is something people don't realize. This expires, and it can be renewed. Lots of publishing of old classics. One of the reasons why there are so many editions, like these luxury editions of Dickens and that kind of thing, is that it's out of copyright.
Mm-hmm.
So the author, it used to be that the author, if the author's been dead for 75 years, then it used to go out of copyright. Now it's a little more complicated. I'm not a writer. I'm an editor, and I was an editor at the New York Times for 23 years, and I had my own book publishing company in London, and so I've had to
Mm-hmm.
chase down people's copyrights, which is a hard job. So any way, it is important. All you need to do to copyright something is to just put copyright with the little C in a circle at the top of a piece of paper with your name and the date. And for practical purposes, it is copyrighted.
Okay, thank you. We're going to hop into that a little bit more. Thank you for that, Christopher. And I'm looking forward to talking offline as well. Any other
Hmm.
thoughts that comes to you all's mind when you think of intellectual property, or what type of item are you thinking? Christopher mentioned book. Here are some other things that are ideas or products that you think that you would consider intellectual property. And let me share this before you answer. Last week, I was in Miami for Art Basel, one of the largest art festivals in the world, and had the good fortune to be able to support my niece, who was being featured as one of the artists. Now, so as an artist, you think of art in many different forms and fashion, but that is intellectual property too, because it's something that was created. It started as an idea, as a concept in the mind, and it manifested itself as a form of art in whichever shape that took. All right. What are some other things that you think of when you think of intellectual property? Okay.
I
I
would
got a
say any
quiet.
creations of the mind.
Say that again.
I would say any creations of the mind. It could be writing, it could be music, it could be art. Anything that as you conceptualize from your mind, I believe we should fall under that.
Absolutely. Anything that any concept of the mind that originates with you, it's intellectual property. It belongs to you. However, you also have to take the steps and the measures to protect that, right? Just because it started in your mind, you may have put it down on paper. It does not mean that it's actually fully protected. But I want to go back to what Christopher was talking about. He was mentioning copyright. And in order to copyright, there's a few ways that you can go about doing it. But anytime you write something down, that is the beginning of the copyright process. It is copywritten then, right? However, you may need to prove it. So sometimes times and stamps and dates may be something that would work in your favor if you didn't follow the federal process for protecting it in the United States. All right. Now, the copyright process varies from country to country. So when you copyright something within the United States, it's protected in the United States. However, we are a global organization, so you would want to copyright your materials, particularly if you're selling them and making them available beyond your region, copyright them in the areas in which you plan to sell also. Any other comments before we move on? Yes, you are absolutely right. So it does include albums like music, art, books, films, movies, plays, software. code, software, when you create a code, that is also intellectual property that should be protected, as well as songs and many others. Now, when you think about intellectual property, there's 4 different components. That's the copyright that we've been talking about. There's the trademark, there's the patents, and then there's the trade secrets. Let's just jump back in on the copyright side. So we're thinking about protecting your artwork, your books, a song, and that would fall in the copyright section. Trademarks. What are some things that come to mind, or companies that have trademarks that when you think of them, you go, oh yeah, that company. So as when you see the golden arches, what do you think of?
We used to run into this at the New York Times because we would talk about Kleenex, for example, but we
Yes.
couldn't say Kleenex because that is a trademark. So we had to say tissues.
Tissue.
And so if we said Kleenex, it had to be actually that brand. And I'll tell you that as an editor there, that caused lots of headaches on deadline, having to call the source and saying, was that actually Kleenex? So we just changed it to tissues. But this is a trademark. And so lots of
Absolutely.
words that it used to be Xerox, for example, back in the old days. That was a trademark. Every photocopier wasn't a Xerox
A
machine.
Xerox. Great points there, Christopher. So rather than say, pass me a Kleenex, if it's not a Kleenex brand, that's their trademark, then we would say tissue. If you say, like the Xerox, you would use that interchangeably for the word copy, but it's actually, if it's not a Xerox product, then it's a copy. And then also things, restaurants, sports materials, they trademark to protect their materials. Can you guys share another idea of trademarks that comes to mind? This is the engagement part, just so you know. I know Christopher has already been chiming in, so I'm waiting for some of these others to, or if you want to listen, that's fine. But I wanted to have some more examples that comes to mind for you. So we talked about copyright. We talked about trademark, right? So the Nike, the swish, the logo has, trademark. Just do it. When we start getting into that, let me share again. Ms. Ruby, we got a quiet group today. I guess because we've been online for several hours, several consecutive hours, we have a listening group today, which is perfectly fine with me. As long as you get what we're giving. I know. All right. So we talked about copyright, we talked about trademark, and then patents. If you create design something, product, something that movable parts, you want to protect that intellectual property under a patent and do that through the United States Patent Office. Again, this is all within the confines of the United States that I'm talking about, and then you would make it applicable to the regions of the world in which you live. Any other thoughts or comments on patents? Well, I'm going to share a concept that I have that I wanted to patent. And by the time I decided to move forward, someone else had the same idea. They had that same intellectual property and similar to mine. It's not like we had a conversation, but it just so happened. So at one point, I wanted to minimize what I carried in my toiletry bags when traveling. So generally, for oral care, we have our toothbrush, we have our toothpaste at the minimum, right? Maybe floss and some mouth freshener. So I thought to create a tube that actually houses the toothpaste and the toothbrush atop. And when you're ready, you just twist from the bottom and it comes out through the tooth. And then when you see someone else that has done that, you go, oh man, I did not get a patent for my idea in time enough. Someone else has run with it. And oftentimes that's the case with intellectual property. You may have these ideas, you might even share them. And what you want to be mindful of is protecting it. And you protect your copyright from the moment that you, let's say, write something down. And you can put a C on it to say copyright. And then you also have what we would call the poor man's copyright. I have some of those from years ago, and I put it in an envelope, seal it up. I put a little notation on the back what it is because I've done a few. Mail it, take it to the post office, get it stamped and dated, and mail it back to myself. So in the court of law, if anything came up about these written works, if I didn't copyright it in the government office at the Library of Congress online, then I have this as proof. So there's several ways you can do it if you don't go this federal route. And speaking of, have either of you encountered something that you created that somebody replicated? I'd love to hear a few of those stories.
For me, I think as a freelance writer, you just write and then you sell off the rights. So you might see your work out there, but you don't bother about it. It's okay. You already made it. You already did the transaction, and it's good. What I get is the fulfillment that my work is out there and is doing fine, and that means I'm on the right track. And one day I will get there on my own. That's the benefit. That's the fulfillment that I get.
Okay. I would like that fulfillment to also be monetized. And so the way that you do that is you protect it. Now, you put this poem out there and someone is using it, and they decide, hey, I'm going to frame it and sell it. At this point, legal protection needs to be in place. So let me share an example. I have written several poems and I've got them framed. And one of my colleagues in the healthcare setting, when she learned that I was a writer, I shared some of my materials with her. And she goes, oh, we need to collaborate. Take this poem of yours and this poem of mine, and let's combine them and rename it, right? So we actually did that. And when I tell you it's powerful together, it's great alone, but it's powerful and collaboration with her. And so we had it printed, we had it framed, we were chosen to speak in Atlanta at a Black History Festival. During the Black Panther, we were also chosen to recite that. And so we had all these things printed up, framed and selling them. And even at the time, CDs too, with us reciting the poems to music. We went into the studio. However, when I submitted it to copyright, because actually I was going to do it on our behalf, they rejected it. And they rejected it, and you have a small time frame in which to answer their questions to clarify. And if you don't, then it's not protected from that entity. Now, here's what you do. If that's ever the case, you've submitted something to the Copyright Office and they send you an email and a rejection, and it may not show up in your box. It might be in your spam. So you overlook it and then you miss the cutoff. And so now it's not protected. The fact that it's now in print, that it's printed, you can no longer submit it electronically. You have to submit it manually through the mail. All right. And it still will have the same review process and then hopefully the final approval. So in the event that you submit something to the Library of Congress Copyright Office and it's not approved, they will write you. So just kind of be on the lookout in your spam and in your email for communication from them so that you can address it. And then likewise, just what Brandon was talking about, he said, I've written some poems, it's out there, I'm happy that it's out there, even if, it's not protected in the sense from a copyright. But, this is your intellectual property. This is something that you've created. And you want to be sure that you have full ownership, whether it's a concept that you created in mind, you put it out in art or in writing. Now, the final item in this particular intellectual property is trade secrets. Trade secrets. And I live in Atlanta, Georgia. Coca-Cola, the headquarters for the Coca-Cola beverage is right here in Atlanta. And I love Coke. Let me just say that. I do. I love Diet Coke. So And I love the whole concept, how they're a global organization. They do work in the community. They contribute to that. However, there is a trade secret for making that Coca-Cola so that it is not replicated and it takes away from what they created many years ago. That's a trade secret. Another trade secret in terms of recipe, Kentucky Fried Chicken. Somebody mentioned that on our call that we were just on for Global Chamber Realtors. And he was saying that Kentucky Fried Chicken it's in a small, remote part of the world that he didn't expect to find it. Colonel Sanders, when he created that recipe for Kentucky Fried Chicken with all the spices and the herbs, that's a trade secret so that we cannot replicate and take it from him. You won't have access to it. It's a trade secret, so he protected it. Now, likewise, I host a writers conference, an annual writers conference, and we have been doing it in Puerto Rico, and this year we did it in Atlanta. And a few years ago, one of our guest speakers and Global Chamber Deputy Director in Atlanta, Nicole Floyd Turner, she's also an attorney. I had some slides, and the slides, I got some of the graphics offline. I said, oh, I like this one. I'm gonna use that in my slides. Oh, I like that. I'm gonna use that in my handout. How about I was not the owner of those designs. I didn't create it. I didn't have the concept. So what was I actually doing? Say it. Unmute yourself for me. I was actually infringing upon the rights of the persons who created that. I was stealing it. It knows to me. It doesn't mean that they can't come after me legally. Yeah, I see you, Christopher. So even graphics that belongs to others or excerpts from books or songs, songs are protected. You can only use, I think, 8 bars without having permission. And after that, you have to purchase that. And most books, authors will say, if you want any excerpts from the books, please contact us, or you can use this particular section. So protect yourselves, be aware and be knowledgeable as you go into the space of being aware about intellectual property. Any comments or questions before we move into these next steps?
One interesting thing about songs is that there used to be people who would go to nightclubs from ASCAP, which is the musical copyright thing, and they would listen to see whether one of the people sang one of the songs that had ASCAP protection, and so they would go and they would pretend to be just regular patrons. So this was quite a thing back in the pre-digital days.
That's
And
a
you
good
had to
point.
actually go there and listen.
Don't you see that today? If you post something in social media and a song that you link to it that you have not written, it will pop up and say, you do not have the rights to use this song unless you say, I do not own the rights to this song when you publish it. And if so, then they allow you to use it. But now on Facebook, they have revenue sharing. So if you earn anything off of it by someone contributing, they have the ability to get percentage. I mean, it happens almost instantaneously. Has anybody experienced that when you're posting reels or Facebooks or things with music? I was in Austria and I had gone to this performance and posted it live on Facebook. I'm like, I'm going to share it with the world. Now they were slower in catching up and saying, hey, you don't own the rights to this. But when they did, I had to choose to accept sharing revenue, and that was not my intention for posting it. But if there were any revenue to come, I had to accept that and then move forward. Yeah, so be mindful. We want you to be aware and to be mindful of how we're showing up, what we're using, how to protect that which we own. So here are the 3 steps that I want us to keep in mind in protecting your intellectual property. First, you have to know what type of intellectual property that you have. Is it something that can be copywritten? Is it a slogan? Is it a trademark? Right? Is it a trade secret? Is it a patent? You have to be clear on what type of intellectual property that you're dealing with. That's step number one. Mohammed, I see your hand. Please feel free to unmute.
Yes, hi. How are you, Dana?
I'm awesome. Thank you for asking.
Thank you very much. I wasn't attending to interrupt or speak in this meeting, just a listener. But the two things that you mentioned, I wanted to share it with you.
Please.
Lately, I run an ad on Facebook, and it was matching with the music that I liked here from Turkey. So
Mm-hmm.
Turkey. So I ran the ad and got back to me. They said you are not allowed to run it. It doesn't belong to you. This is one point that you have mentioned. The other thing
Yes.
that I need to talk about is because I experienced it when I was young, in the early 20 years old, maybe 21 when I was studying in Sweden.
Mm-hmm.
So I was interested in screenplay and writing stuff. So with the creative side, I was also interested in media and TV shows. So I wrote a letter to the public television of Sweden.
Mm-hmm.
And because I have already read books about seed field and those, I know to protect the idea. I wrote the same letter twice. I sent
Mm-hmm.
one to the TV station. It was a
Mm-hmm.
idea for a TV show, talk show, something like that, and I had a design in my mind, everything. We didn't hand computer or digital. It was just hand drawn, and
Mm-hmm.
sent one to the TV station and the second one to my address. I said, "Oh, I now protected it." After a couple of
Absolutely.
months, after a couple of months, I saw a TV show looks like mine, and
No.
I was surprised. I said, I don't think this will happen to me, but it was very interesting. So I took the letter and I went to complain in Sweden. So I couldn't explain the idea of concept. I wanted to protect my idea. Maybe this kind of protection works only in US. I thought when I was, by the way, I am from Iraq. When I saw the West is, I looked at it as a one system. But I went to the prosecutor and I said, they stole my idea, and this is the proof. They said, why you are mailing yeah, the idea to yourself? And they didn't got it. My question is this only works in US or other countries like Europe or maybe America or Africa? Because uh, it looks like that it only works in the US. And thank you for mentioning this because I was thinking about it when you mentioned it. So it's also TV shows. I think it will be also an intellectual property. Uh,
Absolutely.
and
That's
then
a
this
great.
company,
Mhm.
yes. Thank you very much. I just wanted to mention this and hi everybody. Thanks for this great lecture. And I apologize, I can't open my camera. I'm in.
No
So.
worries.
Uh,
No worries. I'll just have
Thank
less
you. I
pictures
will
to post.
keep listening and thank you very much.
Mohammed, thank you so much for that question. And because we are global in what we do, we have to think globally. I'm, literally here in the United States. But if I am doing this and I want my reach to be in China, India, different countries in Africa, other parts of Europe, then I need to be aware of the laws that govern that area to protecting my intellectual property. So there are offices, and I do have some materials that I'm happy to share. I'll put my LinkedIn profile and I'll put my personal email in the chat. And then just reach out to me and just say, patent, patent, and then I'll share the information with whomever reaches out. I'm happy to do that. Okay, that sounds good. All right. But you're right. So now you saw your film idea on TV. Somebody else ran with it. And I don't know about you, but when you create something and you find that someone else has taken it and run with it, and they're also benefiting from it, it's enough to just get your blood boiling. But you also have legal rights when you protect your things, knowing what the land laws of the land are in your region. Please, whether you're in Istanbul, whether you're in Kenya, whether you're in France, or wherever you may find yourself, know the lands of the law. Now, if you're publishing and you want the laws of the United States to govern, I already got you, Library of Congress. Okay, good points. I'm going to just hop back in and resume those next two steps because we covered the first one, which is to really know what type of intellectual property. And so when we're talking about knowing what type, is what category does it fall in? The copyright, the patent, the trade secrets, the trademark. And once you're clear on that, then you want to protect it. Protect your intellectual property, not just by mailing it to yourself. If that's all you can do at this moment until you have the time, energies, and resources to do it officially with the Copyright Office or the Trademark U.S. Patent Office here in the United States, if you're working in this space, then at least mail it to yourself. Email things to yourself. I am a big proponent on emailing anything I write and create to myself right away, even if it's not finished, because it's time, date, stamped, and it's connected to my email. You can even say this is an original work and it is, I copyright it. So protect it. And then, as Christopher was saying, there is a lifespan to that protection. When you go through the federal government in the United States, I think it was 70 years from 70 years for your copyright, 70 years after your initial submission, or 70 years after your initial submission, and so many years after your death. And so know the laws, because intellectual property is a legal protection that turns your creativities, your ideas, and your innovation into your own assets. So those are the 3 steps. And then I will share with you a couple of more case studies and let you know some of the things that are coming up and opportunities that we have for Global Chamber Author Series. So now this is where we get to engage. I already saw how many people have written books, how many people want to write books, and just somewhere in between, you're not sure where you are in the whole process. So tell me, what are you going to do moving forward with the information that you have to protect your intellectual property, whatever it is? Of course, we're in the book space, but it doesn't have to be about book. So unmute yourselves. Let's engage. And then we got inspired by Brigitte. Welcome. Happy to have you here as well. Unmute yourself and share what type of intellectual property that you're thinking about. I might need to protect that. Are you a computer coder? Codes have to be copywritten. Are you an artist? Are you writing a screenplay? Are you creating a patent, a design on something? What are you doing? And what are you going to walk away with and how you can protect it? Christopher, I'm going to have to lean on you again. And Brandon. All right. So our question is, what are you doing and walking away with those 3 steps, how can you protect your IP?
Well, I work with other people's IPs because I'm an editor, and so people come to me for help with their writing process, with their writing projects. But I'm gonna make sure that they take these steps.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things
Absolutely.
that I used to tell writers at the New York Times was that, oh, I'm afraid this other writer is going to steal my idea, and I used to say, there's only one cure for a writer stealing your idea is to have another idea. That
Mm-hmm.
just where that idea came from, there needs to be 50 more of them so that you don't have to worry about it. But in practical terms, I'm going to ask all of my clients that I'm helping with writing projects whether they're protected. And this was a very, very good reminder to do that. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Now, working with the New York Times, how do we go about the process for submitting to become a New York Times best-selling author? I would be remiss if I
Well,
didn't ask you that question.
the bestsellers, it's a very interesting question. If you have a book, we used to have to call the bestseller department to make
Mhm.
sure if a book was called a New York Times bestseller, we had to check facts, and you would call these people back in the old days. Now you can do it online,
Mhm.
and it was like calling to a monastery or something. They were in this little room that was disconnected from the rest of the paper so that no one could influence them. They had
Mm,
nothing to do with the book review, nothing to do with the book reviewers, because they had to be pure. Um,
mhm,
what they do is they check with certain bookstores,
mhm,
and I guess now they do it on Amazon too. Nobody knows which bookstores they go to, and they ask what has been selling most. So they
mm,
have this list, which is this mix of various regions and different kinds of outlets. So that's how you become a New York Times best-selling author, but it is a carefully guarded secret. And I
mm.
didn't even know it, even though I used to work with these people every single day.
Isn't that something? It's almost like that little trade secret. They had to even protect that process, huh? Well, I do the very same thing with our aspiring authors. And we do that through a program that we have. This is our signature program. It's actually called 90 Days to Manuscript Masterclass. So what we do is we create authorpreneurs, not just authors, but they also get the business component to it. And I'm sharing this with you because it's so pertinent to what we're talking about. When they go through our program, we make sure all of their work is protected. Okay. Because the last thing you want to do is to, again, put the energies, the effort, the commitment, the time, and the resources into something, and then it's not protected for a legacy to pass on to your family, to make an impact in the community, to influence business and the direction of things. So we do that in our 90 Days to Manuscript Masterclass and any other services that we offer to protect our people. We offer this particular training masterclass twice a year, January 1st, and we finish up at the end of March, and then the first Thursday in August, and we finish up at the end of October. And again, it's not for naught. Their materials are going to be protected, and we give them the other components so that they can move smoothly through the process. Now, I want to share this with you all too. So today, you're getting like everything. This is our last Globinar for the year. So I am not leaving anything on the table. So this particular platform, I'm sharing this with you. This is what we use for writing in our 90 days and any of our courses. And it's a writing platform that one of my colleagues developed, and he developed it at our initial conference. He was rolling it out. He had the ideas like sticky notes, like behind this guy's head almost. So we saw it. And then the following year in Puerto Rico at our conference, he rolled it out. We were the first conference. So it's called Blooksy. It's a writing platform. Trust me, you want to make your writing process easy. And once you log in and sign up for a username and membership, it kind of outlines the chapters and even the front matter of your book. If you can, I'll see if I can copy this. I'll copy it, but I'll go ahead and put that in the link. And so this is my affiliate link if you want to take advantage of that, and this will be associated with us. Mohammed, I see you have another question, and I'd like to go ahead and entertain that. We still have time. Go ahead, please.
Thank, thank you again.
No worries.
For your question, what do you do to protect your intellectual? In Turkey, for example, we have a very digitalized patent institution. Any brand or idea or word I thinking of, I made it hobby. Now I have registered more than six uh, uh, patent in my name, and it's
Mm,
all because of the infrastructure that digital. I can apply digitally. I submit the word, and but the problem is it will take almost a year to have it granted
mm,
for us. Yeah. And also, I have one question.
sure.
Maybe it is very complicated, but I hope you will have some. My latest trip from Baghdad to Ankara,
Mm-hmm.
I accidentally met with a very famous poet from
Poet, yes.
Iraq. Yeah. And I liked the guy, and we had some delay in the airport, and I had interaction with him for. So I made some research and found it. So I explained the story to AI ChatGPT and
Mm-hmm.
said, write a poem uh, referring to this man. So it was very nice, and it was also in Arabic. Now I'm confused. First of all, is this poem mine or not? Or can I can I patent it? So
You,
what do you
you, I,
think about that?
I promise you, you are raising some incredible questions today, all of you, and comments, because we have to be mindful of the digital world in which we're living and with AI, artificial intelligence, and how we utilize it without plagiarizing, because that's always the concern. Intellectual
Yeah, but
property
in my
means,
defense, I explained the story very clear for him, so he could have
yes,
been creative more. So yes, thank you.
yeah, yes, you're absolutely right. But again, let me just go with, let me answer it from a personal perspective. I generally use Chat GPT, but I type in there everything that I want to say, you know? Help me refine is what I say. Help me to refine. So the words are mine. The concepts are mine. They're my intellectual property. And it will help me to refine it. So basically that is my material. However, ChatGPT, they own the material that's on there. You don't own it, you know. When you're utilizing their tools, I think there's something in fine printing that says that they own that. So they could very well go back, but then you can prove this is what I put in. This was my concept, and they just, for me, I use it to refine. Um, that's how I would recommend using that. And I see my battery's running low, so I apologize. So do that. And the last thing I'm going to share, just for the sake of time, so you all can hop on the final one, is I sent you the Blooksy link in the chat. And then we also have our business anthology coming with the book release next month. So if you're interested in being a contributing author to this chapter, we have categories and you can contribute there. So I want to thank you for your time, for joining us for our Global Chamber Author Series. If you're interested in being on our core team to kind of help come up with speakers and ideas, or even be one yourself, even as an author, let us know for 2026. We're going to start getting that going and start planning for the quarter. You guys have been extremely exceptional and a delight to chat with. I look forward to getting some emails or texts saying, hey, send me the patent information and I'll shoot it over to you in the email. And I want to wish you a happy Christmas, Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Thank you. Great questions, great input. Protect your stuff. Have a good day. Thank you, Miss Ruby.